and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend, because it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
Hello, and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast on managing cloud assets. A couple of industry heavy hitters are with us today. You'll be hearing from Rubik and Palo Alto Networks, two of the most innovative companies in the industry. My name is Keith Ward. I'm a moderator with Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your host for this EcoCast today. As always, it's not just the awesome content that we're giving away today. We've got fantastic prizes for you too. Today we'll be giving away 3 $300 Amazon gift cards. So stay tuned for those. And as Jess mentioned, you do have to be present for the entire event to be eligible. All right, enough of that. On to the main event. Now, when it comes to managing cloud assets, one of the most important aspects is to secure those assets from threats, both internal and external. That's the focus of today's EcoCast, and I wanted to kick things off by spending a few minutes covering 5 cloud security myths. Are you ready for that? So let's get to the first myth. Here we go. Myth number 1. The platform protects my data, so I'm safe. Now, this is a really common myth about cloud security. Lots of folks think that the cloud provider is responsible for everything and that organizations can simply outsource their security to the cloud provider and then just kind of relax. Well, let me tell you something. This myth needs to be killed with fire. Remember, the cloud security is based on a shared responsibility model between the cloud provider and the customer. That means you have responsibility too. The cloud provider, whether it's Amazon, Microsoft, Google, or some other vendor, is responsible for securing the cloud infrastructure and services, like the hardware, the software, the networking, their own facilities, things like that. But you, the customer, are responsible for securing the applications and data that are on the platform. Now, if you only remember one thing from this presentation, from these slides that I'm going over, remember that you have responsibilities that you have to fulfill to keep yourself safe in the cloud. All right, next up, myth number 2. The security in my data center is better than the security in the cloud. So this one is why organizations have often hesitated to move sensitive data to the cloud. And in fact, they still do in a lot of cases, are hesitant to do that because that is what they think. The whole walled garden idea, fewer things that you have got to secure. But that really isn't the case anymore. All the major cloud service providers have hugely upgraded their underlying security capabilities. And if you think about it, they really needed to, after all, since without the rock solid security necessary to protect everything that's up there, they won't have any customers, right? Think about it that way. They have a ton of tools and processes to secure their clouds, and they're always adding new ones. So if you hire the right people, if you do things like adopt a DevSecOps model, which is a combination of developers and operations that bake in security at the very beginning of all these processes, then the cloud can be as secure or even more secure than your typical on-premises environment. All right, let's get to the third myth. Myth number 3. More security tools automatically equals better security. So this is pretty common as well. A recent industry surveys show that many organizations feel that there is tool overload. But according to at least one of the surveys, the average company uses more than 100 security controls from multiple vendors. Some companies even have dozens of vendors supplying with various security tools. And although the tendency might be to think that you're more secure with all of this, the reality very often is that with so many tools and all their disparate solutions, it can, number one, be a management nightmare. I mean, there's so much to look at, so much to track there. And number two, having all those tools can easily leave gaps that you don't even know are there. In addition, these tools, if there's all that many, there's contention among resources. They don't always, or maybe even often, play nice together. They can cause all kinds of conflicts, and that can really leave you vulnerable as well. All right, so let's move to myth number 4. Myth number 4 says that cloud security is cheaper than on-premises security. And wouldn't we all love for this to be true, right? Throw it up in the cloud, be done with it, and you save hundreds or thousands of dollars or more than that a month. But the reality is that the cloud really has different cost variables than on-premises environments, and every organization needs to consider the total cost of ownership, TCO, that you know, and return on investment, the other acronym in that duo, ROI, of their cloud security strategy. Now, some things are cheaper. For cloud security, you have low or no, capital expenditures, CapEx. There's more power savings, right? There's fewer servers heating up the data center, less cooling need and things like that, and fewer software licenses, right? So that's the good. Those are the lower costs. But they have to be balanced against the higher operational expenses and other expenses like data transfer, especially data egress charges, which end up biting a lot of companies in the end that they didn't expect, right? Moving data to the cloud typically is free. Moving it out of that particular cloud, well, that's when you get socked. You also are paying for storage, backup, and so on, and all of those other services. So while it may be cheaper in the cloud, it's not automatically cheaper. That means you need to do your due diligence when researching various solutions, and just do your standard cost comparison, find out what works for you. And now on to our fifth and last myth. And this is regulatory compliance is difficult, if not impossible, in the cloud. This is one that continues to linger for many organizations. Lots of you think that regulations like HIPAA, PCI compliance, they're just too strict for cloud environments. That was true to a large degree, maybe 10 years ago. That is not true really anymore. The large cloud platforms, which we've alluded to, have lots of built-in tech to deal with things like proper event logging and monitoring that governmental agencies want to see. Some of these abilities that they have built in now include strong intrusion detection systems, or IDSs, data at rest encryption, thorough audit reports, and artificial intelligence enhancements that satisfy all of these necessary requirements. So by and large, you can feel safe and you will be in compliance with your data in the cloud. So don't fall prey to that mindset anymore. That just does not work. And those are our 5 myths about cloud security. As they say in the smash Broadway hit Hamilton, and if you don't know, now you know. All right. So that leads us into our first poll question of the day, which you can see in the console there. We're curious, what's your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? Is it happening really soon? Are you still in the planning stages? Is it even on the horizon at this point? This information is super valuable to us, so please let us know where you're at right now. Thanks, and keep those votes coming for a few more seconds while we get prepared for our first presentation of the day. So let's move on to that. All right, I would like to introduce, for your consideration, Eddie Wazlowski, a cloud product sales manager for Federal and SLED at Rubrik. Now, I'll be joining Eddie at the end of his presentation to answer some of your great questions that are already starting to come in. Eddie is with us now and he's ready to go. So, Eddie, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Keith, for the introduction. Looking forward to spending some time with you all to talk a little bit more about Microsoft 365, how their technology works in terms of their security stack, where there are threats that exist against the platform, and why the enforcement or the deployment of a defense in depth strategy is so critical as it relates to the platform, specifically around backing up and protecting those assets in a different tenant or a different deployment dependent on your 365 instance. So at Rubrik, if you aren't familiar with our organization, we build technology as well as have a full breadth of resources that are designed to help you recover or help organizations recover from a ransomware attack. And what we typically find is that organizations historically have spent a significant amount of money on protecting the identity and protecting access to their most critical data. But what we find now is that social engineering tactics and brute force attacks are becoming more effective in terms of compromising user credentials that are allowing threat actors to be able to get to data itself. So while all of those technologies are very important in terms of a defense in depth strategy, we really need to be thinking about not building the walls higher or the moats wider, but really figuring out ways in which we can protect some of the most critical data elements inside of our environment. Specifically, as we look at 365, we have something like 300 million users a day that are accessing 365, and petabytes of data are being added into the environment. But there isn't this correlation of data security solutions that are being invested in as a function of it growing to a tier 1 or tier 0 application. And threat actors are understanding that and knowing that there isn't a backup of all of the data that exists inside of their platform, so they don't have a mechanism natively to recover in the event of a threat. And we see this through CISA, we see it through Microsoft and others recommending that there is a mechanism to be able to have an ability to roll back or recover data in the event of a user credential compromising event. Because threat actors are just becoming that much more clever in terms of how they get access to information. We also see this from Mandiant, and if you aren't familiar with Mandiant, they're kind of the forensic analysis, the Sherlock Holmes of attacks in general as it pertains to ransomware. And they themselves are seeing this as a potential gold mine because we don't see this correlation of not only the deployment of all of Microsoft's rich data security capabilities in terms of their Purview solutions and Windows Defender and all of those others, but don't necessarily have a mechanism or a third-party storage of data that will allow them to recover in the event of an attack. And we see this, unfortunately, kind of on a weekly basis, where there are new attacks, there are new things that threat actors have figured out as it relates to 365 and Windows and things around Azure, where they're beginning to gain privileged access to an environment to ultimately be able to hold you hostage. So you really need to be thinking about it. And after this session, I'd like, if nothing else, if you didn't hear anything else that I talked about, really understanding if you have answers to these two questions. If we had a ransomware attack against 365, if it's a critical application inside of our environment and we were attacked, what do we do? Or alternatively, if someone were to make an administrative change that they didn't know would affect thousands of users or hundreds of thousands of documents, what would be our mechanism to recover? In my experience, when I speak to executives and others, a lot of times the answer becomes, well, Microsoft has the ability to recover all of our data because it's a hosted application, it's SaaS, it makes sense, right? But really what we find is there are a series of misconceptions around what Microsoft can and can't do. So let's spend a couple of minutes and talk about that. So the first thing is, well, what Microsoft does is got to be sufficient for recovery, right? All of the things that they do, Microsoft tells us all of their security capabilities. And if you look at Microsoft's documentation as it relates to their security strategy, it is comprehensive. There's no two ways about it. But a lot of what they're doing is around protecting identity, ensuring that you're accessing the right information, and ensuring that content lives for the appropriate amount of time inside of your environment. But what they are doing is giving you a mechanism to be able to recover if a user credential is compromised. The other part of it is, well, we have archiving and we have retention policies and we have the recycle bin that exists within 365. And while those tools are very effective from a compliance perspective, it isn't a backup solution. It isn't a mechanism to be able to recover data. In fact, a lot of the settings and configurations that exist within those are manipulatable by threat actors. So I could change an archiving policy. I could change a retention policy, 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it may be, to accelerate or to intensify an attack. And then, well, Microsoft should recover this, right? It's in their cloud, right? It's their cloud. What we really need to be thinking about there is there's this concept of a shared responsibility model within 365, right? And we really need to be thinking about how that strategy plays in when we start looking at all of the things that Microsoft does. And we'll touch on that here in a second. And the fact that, again, the FBI, CISA, Mandiant, right? They're all making these recommendations that we have to have backups for our cloud applications based on what we've seen in terms of the threats. So let's dive a little bit more into Microsoft. Let's talk a little bit about the shared responsibility model, because I want to dive into that a little bit more, give you some more clarity. And this slide is actually directly from Microsoft, where they're talking about what their strategy is, right? And there is much more in-depth documentation and information around Microsoft strategy. But essentially it is, what's the inventory of our data? You're using SharePoint and OneDrive, Teams, Exchange. What is the information that exists inside of the platform? And based on its criticality, who should have access to it? And whoever is accessing that information, are they getting outside of the boundaries that we've set for that user? For example, Eddie is in product, Eddie is in sales. What if tomorrow Eddie started accessing accounting information or human resources content, right? That's a challenge. We need to be able to mitigate that from a risk perspective and ensure that it lives for a certain period of time. Makes a ton of sense, right? These are the core pillars of an enterprise collaboration platform, right? But what we really need to be thinking about is that while Microsoft does all of these things, the data that is being published to the environment is ultimately your responsibility. And I really talk to this slide more about the fact that Microsoft, think of them as an apartment complex, right? Microsoft gives you a place to be able to store your things, right? They give you a door, they give you a lock, they give you a deadbolt. But if someone breaks down your door, if someone copies your key, right? If you let them in, that's why in the apartment analogy, we have renter's insurance. The same concept and the same issue exists in terms of a 365 deployment. So really what we want to do is we want to take the crown jewels. We want to take our most important stuff and we want to put that into, if you've ever seen the pod company, right? They come and they drop the pod in your driveway and you put all your stuff in and they put it in a warehouse. That's the same concept, right? That we're talking about. Because if someone breaks down your door, they can't get the most critical information that exists in your environment. So the big thing here is that Microsoft and Rubrik have partnered together, and much more so than the 30 or 40,000 partners that Microsoft has throughout the world, but really giving you a mechanism to be able to attack cybersecurity threat actors. So Microsoft actually took an equity stake investment in Rubrik about 2 years ago as a part of a multi-billion-dollar cybersecurity strategy to fight this. And we are actually building technology together. So our engineering teams are partnering together and working together to understand what's next in terms of the threat landscape, right? What are those folks doing? What do we need to do to stay one step ahead? And a lot of it is this whole defense in depth, this multi-layered strategy. Make it harder for folks to get in. Make sure we have the ability to limit the scope of damage, and then make sure we have an ability to recover so that we're not paying the bad guys. Super important story that makes a lot of sense, and we're delivering this to thousands of customers and millions of users throughout the planet. So this technology, this thing that I've been kind of referencing, what is it? Like what's the secret sauce here in terms of capabilities? So a lot of what I'm going to talk through, it just kind of logically makes sense. Well, I said the pod instance, right? Well, okay, we're going to create that by creating a logical air gap between your environment and the backups that Rubrik is taking. So we're going to use Microsoft's modern authentication process. We're going to encrypt data, and we're going to make a direct API connection to 365. And the backups that we are going to be taking are going to be secured because we've encrypted the data, because in the back end, it is immutable. Right? We have an append-only file system. So we're taking all of the data across SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, Exchange, and putting it into that pod or that virtual pod in an Azure subscription that is managed by Rubrik. And then giving you the ability to manage who can do what inside of the application. Who can create a backup policy, who can do a restore, who can do really anything in terms of the product, but making sure we have that drilled down maybe by the application layer, maybe by the content type, those types of things from a granularity perspective. And then giving you the ability to lock all of those settings and configurations so that even if someone were an admin of the system that wanted to make changes, they couldn't. So from a resiliency perspective, giving you all of the confidence of, okay, I can now open up 365 or Azure to all of my users, all of my critical workloads and applications, because now I have this complete strategy in place that I can go back to whomever and say, I have the confidence that we can do this because Microsoft provides this, and together Rubrik provides this in terms of being able to recover content. So even if any of those things fail, even if a user clicks on something they shouldn't, we have an ability to roll back. The other part of this is, where does my sensitive data exist? Right? Do we have critical information that exists in the platform? Because if we were to have someone that were to kind of be socially engineered, we have sensitive data discovery turned on in terms of the Microsoft product, but what about our backups? Can we have a kind of a point in time or a gradual understanding of where sensitive data is living in terms of the environment, so that we can maybe drill down and know if there is potentially an anomalous event? Do we have, do we know where all of our PII exists? Do we know where all of our PCI exists? And are there changes to that data over a period of time that we need to potentially be looking at? Or alternatively, if someone clicks on something they're not supposed to, the information that they access, was there sensitive data in there? Do we really need to be concerned about that? Or do we really need to go through and really surgically recover that information? Important points, important things to be thinking about is in terms of recovery, because while it's great for Rubrik and others to be able to say, hey, we're going to recover all of this information for you. Great, but is it really, what's the criticality? Where do we start, right? What's the most important stuff that we need to begin with? Really, really important things to be kind of thinking about. The other part is Rubrik as an organization. I talked about in the beginning, we've got technology, but we also have very smart people that we've employed within our organization to be able to stay one step ahead. So Michael Mestrovich used to actually be with the CIA. If anyone knows in terms of the public sector or just in general threats, it's this gentleman. Steve Stone, who is with our Zero Labs department or our division, he was actually one of the folks that was responsible to respond to the SolarWinds attack, if you remember that, which is pretty catastrophic to a number of organizations. So these folks are working together to understand what's next, what's happening, and working with Microsoft to be able to deliver all of that for our customers. The other part of this too is having a technology that does this is great. Right, gives us peace of mind, gives us, this ability to really leverage our investments, potentially retire other technologies. Right, it's a very good story. But if that day comes, if we need to be able to figure out our ability, we have to recover content, it can be a very lonely task. So what we've done is we actually build a group of folks who are seasoned engineers within our organization that their only job is to work with those customers that think they may be under a ransomware attack or may have the ability to, or may have the requirement to recover a lot of content in a short period of time. You call these folks. As a part of the contract, as a part of your agreement with Rubrik, these folks are actually working together with you to be able to recover. And they're deployed a couple of times a week and are working very diligently to be able to help you recover. So technology, great, secure, scalable, very fast, that I'll talk about here in a second, but having this kind of peace of mind or a team that is going to be able to deliver this to you is pretty significant. So let me just wrap up and talk a little bit about how the product works, because this is important. You'll see in the marketplace, there's a lot of other technologies out there that say, hey, we back up data, right? We have the ability to back up information, but the rubber really meets the road. It really becomes critical when you start talking about, okay, how secure are you and how do you recover this information, right? So really our ability here is talking about building a structure where we're connecting securely to the Microsoft environment. We're replicating that to multiple Azure regions, doing so that is through a best practice with Microsoft. Being able to work inside of and understand the Graph API that works with Microsoft and the challenges there, because there are so many users that are hitting that application on a daily basis, and making sure that we can solve for this challenge associated with throttling. If you're trying to do anything at scale as it relates to Microsoft, you have to be able to build in security, but you also have to be able to understand how it works in terms of the amount of data you can push through, how quickly you can push it through, and if there are challenges in terms of being throttled. So we get away from this whole on-prem architecture with cloud to cloud and being able to build out a significant amount of performance where we can recover for Exchange 90 million emails a day, 15,000 users a day. In terms of SharePoint and OneDrive, being able to make a significant amount of API calls within the product and being able to recover millions and millions and millions of documents dependent on the size of your environment. So application built for scale, built for security, and really built for performance. So if you go back to the question that I was asking before, what happens? What do we have in terms of our ransomware strategy against 365? What do we do if someone inadvertently deletes information? We really have a story here within the Rubrik solution. So thank you so much, Keith. It looks like we may have a few questions here, so I'd like to turn it back over to you and get those answered.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Eddie. That was great information. The idea of Microsoft as a landlord is a little bit scary too, but it does help you grasp exactly what the relationship is, which is very, very important. And we do have some great questions, so let's jump right in. First one for you, Eddie. How would a solution like the one you're describing from Rubrik complement or compete with an E5 license from Microsoft?
Yeah, great question. So the E5 SKU, right, it gives you the ability to classify information, understand what's happening in terms of the environment. So it gives you a lot of rich information about your environment and helps you respond to specific anomalous activities and things like that. But there isn't a backup element, right? There isn't a recovery element. So we can actually work with and understand the security tags that have been deployed within the Microsoft stack and actually look at those from a backup perspective so that we can mirror those tags that have been applied so that we can surgically recover information. So the technologies work very well hand in hand to be able to give you kind of a comprehensive understanding of your risk posture, where sensitive information exists, and how you can recover.
Gotcha. Okay, next up, for deployment, how long typically will that take to get Rubrik up and running in an environment?
Yeah, great question. So it's a very simple solution. We can actually have customers up and running inside of a day. We're really just going through and taking an index of the environment and understanding what we want to do in terms of the frequency of backups, and then we're off and running. So customers are up and running 24 to 48 hours. And so really, really powerful, almost kind of backup as a service, if you will.
Fantastic. That's going to be a key feature for so many folks. Okay, next up for you. Does the solution also extend out to Microsoft Azure, i.e. Microsoft's cloud platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here in the context, we're talking about kind of their modern workplace solutions, but yes, we can actually extend, protect Azure virtual machines, SQL, cloud native workloads, and things of that nature. So you have kind of a single pane of glass, or even if you're a multi-cloud customer, right? If you have AWS or GCP, having the ability to give you that comprehensive coverage across all of those clouds, absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, next up, how is Rubrik licensed? Are there multiple ways to do it?
Yeah. So we just base the pricing based on, or the solution based on the number of active users that exist within your 365 environment, while also looking at the amount of data that you have inside of the platform. So, looking at that, dividing by the number of users and giving you a storage allotment per each user, which is a shared pool for all of your users. So being able to cover, if you have a very heavy user that's got a lot of data, or one that doesn't, or just has very little, we can balance that out from a licensing perspective. So a shared pool in terms of the data.
That kind of flexibility is really nice to have too. Okay, I think that is all the questions we have time for now, Eddie. I do have one final thing for you, and that is, you've presented a lot about Rubrik. I think you've whetted a lot of appetites here. So for those who want to take the next step in learning more about Rubrik, what should they do now?
Yeah, great question. So, Rubrik.com, right, is a great resource to be able to go and ask questions, right? You can request trials of this product that I was kind of going through. You can request contact by sales resources. But if you have, if you work with a partner, right, if you have an engineering partner, if you have a software, a deployment partner, or licensing partner, or a consultant, chances are they're going to know who Rubrik is as well. Right. So being able to reach out to them and say, hey, I want to talk to Rubrik. We have an extensive partner community, or you can even ask Microsoft themselves. They understand and know our technologies, our partnership, and can be able to work with you as well. So it's a lot of different ways in which you can get in contact with us, but Rubrik.com is probably the best place to start.
That sounds good. All right, Eddie, thanks so much for your time in the presentation today. It was great to have you on.
Great. Thanks so much, Keith.
All right. Well, that Q&A was a lot of fun to do with Eddie. So we're now up for our next poll question. Thank you for all your great questions. Now we're going to ask you one. You've heard a lot about what Rubrik can do to protect Microsoft applications in the cloud, and we want to know what additional information from Rubrik that you're hungry for. So vote in the poll, which I'll leave up while we give away the first $300 Amazon gift card of today's event. As I mentioned before, and as Jess told you, you do have to be present for the entire event to be eligible for our gift cards. And we have a winner for the very first one of the day, and it is David Glow from Colorado. Congratulations, David, on your win. We'll be in touch to get you your card. All right, now it is time for our next presentation. Joining us is Tim Junio, Senior Vice President of Products for Palo Alto. And he'll be joined by Dr. Gregory Heon, Director of Product Management. They're here to discuss a new product relating to attack surface management. This is something, of course, that is central to cloud asset management, since protecting those exposed assets is job one for any organization. Tim and Greg are ready to go now, so I'm going to throw it to them.
Hi, I'm Tim Junio. I was the co-founder and CEO of Expanse, acquired by Palo Alto Networks in 2020, and now I lead all attack surface management product development for Palo Alto Networks. I'm joined today by Greg Heon. Greg, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hi, all. I'm Greg. I've been a part of the Expanse team for a little over 6 years, and I lead product management for Expander.
So today we're really excited to share with you the Expander version 2.0 release, which is the largest, most feature-rich release of Expander since we invented the attack surface management category in 2016. We're going to start with a brief overview of the attack surface management space, talk a little bit about what we did in the V2 release, and where we're taking the attack surface management category with what we're calling active attack surface management, or finally connecting discovery to control surfaces to remediate attack surface management problems automatically. After that, we will show a demo of Expander v2, where you can see some of those new capabilities in action to auto-remediate attack surface management risks in cloud environments. So to start with a bit of framing regarding the problem, we roll back a few years to when basically everybody running a large enterprise network started thinking about future network architectures in a different way, which is moving from a perimeter-based model where the good stuff is behind some kind of security and everything else is on the other side of the wall, to many relationships where every large enterprise network is now comprised of both on-prem assets, like what we had thought about as the attack surface before, and a very wide range of additional assets in cloud environments, in IoT, other types of operational technology, SaaS applications, and all of this rolling up with remote work, people being all over the place, including their homes and coffee shops and hotels, and that becoming part of the new normal for enterprise networks. This has necessitated a change in the direction that I'm sure you've heard referred to as zero trust network architectures or Beyond Corp and other such terms for basically doing continuous security evaluations across many different parts of an enterprise IT network for its security. And where we come in with attack surface management is looking at that public internet backbone that connects all of those different types of applications and services and is inherently insecure, but needs to be secured by every enterprise that is operating over public internet. For attack surface management, what's most important is to first understand what's everything that is routable over public internet and what are risks associated with those assets, given this new and large attack surface that continues to grow and change on a regular basis. We see for large organizations, it's really hard to get on top of that problem of knowing where all of the assets are and their security risk status, because there are so many different systems and data living in different places. So what we see from the very beginning, when we come in and work with a new customer, is they very rarely have an accurate and up-to-date inventory of what are all of their assets, and then what is the security risk status of each. On top of that, not knowing what's on the network and its risk status also is lost in a mountain of alerts that we see coming from many different security products, where it's also hard to figure out what is most urgent and what is just important. So with that unclear prioritization of risks, we then end up in a situation where security teams are overwhelmed and don't have enough people to do all of the remediations, even when those remediations involve a lot of repeat work. And we, of course, in developing software, are targeting that repeat work to figure out what we can best automate to drive security outcomes for our customers faster and faster. And the speed associated with remediation of attack surfaces is critically important today in a way that it wasn't in the last couple of years. So a lot of the urgency for why every organization needs an attack surface management solution now is with this new network architecture that is on public internet. We see that there is an adversarial approach to every time there is a known exploit that can be used over the public internet, such as remote code execution against a known running service or device. We see that attackers automate attacks very rapidly after the information about that exploit becomes known. And so if we go back a few years and we're looking at public internet attack surfaces, we saw that it would take attackers on the order of months before they would replicate attacks that somebody had initiated, so what had been a 0-day, then proliferating. But what we're now seeing is that within hours, and in some cases even minutes, in the last 2 years, attackers are writing scripts to test for vulnerable systems all over the world and all over the public internet. What this means is for large organizations, when a major exploit is published, such as Log4j, or going back a couple of years, the exploits associated with SolarWinds, organizations have to act much faster than ever before to find and patch or remove from the public internet all of those instances. So the timeline has collapsed from having months to sort through data to figure out where a device is and which need to be fixed, down to minutes to hours to be ahead of attackers. And otherwise, organizations risk being even an opportunistic target when attackers are just searching for vulnerable systems across the entire world. So the way in which we're solving this problem at Palo Alto Networks is what we're calling active attack surface management, which is also an advance on how attack surface management has been done to date in the field. Active attack surface management is comprised of three parts. First, active discovery. Second, active learning. And third, active response. Active discovery is the continuous process of how Expanse looks through global internet data to find assets associated with our customers, bring those back to a common inventory, and put contextual information alongside the device info or service info such that our customers understand who in the organization is using that asset and the business context, such as whether or not it's a development or production environment. And this is something that is operating for all of our customers all of the time. And so the active component is that we are constantly looking for new assets as they appear on the internet so that our customers can be really fast in finding everything such that when an internet emergency such as Log4j or SolarWinds, as mentioned, occurred, they can very quickly remove those assets from the internet and therefore make them non-targets very rapidly after public disclosure. Active learning is how we continuously use our customer data to improve results on what is important to our customers. So what needs to be disproportionately alerted to because it is a priority for the customer, and also learning more about the customer's environment so that we can provide more and more contextual information to speed up remediation processes. So we have an in-house team that trains models on how our customers configure their devices such that our systems can automatically identify those assets in the future and provide the relevant information at the fingertips of an analyst responding to some incident. And then finally, what we're proudest to announce today is active response, which is building automation into our Expander flagship product to auto-remediate attack surface risks as they appear. So this has been an area of keen interest for folks in attack surface management since the beginning of the category, because almost everyone in attack surface management has first focused, as we did, on the discovery of assets. So how do you find everything on the internet that belongs to a customer? That, of course, is useful, but needs to be connected to a workflow or some other process to remediate those exposures when they come up. And this has been the bane of many of our earliest customers because it ends up being laborious and requires some specialized labor to be able to fix attack surface problems after they are discovered. What we did at Palo Alto Networks is embed automation into Expander and provide attack surface management specific content for our customers such that future Expander customers will be able to download auto remediation playbooks that also have data connectors and integrations to other products in customer environments so that we can go from an identified attack surface risk through our platform, remediating those risks, such as removing assets from the internet. So something as simple as closing off the ports that were exposed automatically so they can no longer be communicated with over public internet, through potentially changing software versions, and of course, at a bare minimum, opening tickets to then feed into security and security operations and information security workflows, and then also into third-party products as needed for those control surfaces, such as our own next generation firewalls, control planes in cloud providers, and then eventually third-party applications, which we have started doing with our first customers in Expander V2. So this gets you into a totally different zone of response time, where for something as simple as trying to remediate remote desktop protocol exposures in cloud environments, customers would normally have to go through a time-consuming process of identifying asset owners, reaching out to them, and then asking them to please remove the exposed service. And as many of you, I'm sure, know, RDP is the principal way in which ransomware has been propagating. And last year, we observed that over half of successful ransomware attacks first started with exposed remote desktop protocol over the internet. So this is one of the highest priority items that any customer can be addressing. And what we've done in Expander V2 with active response is build through the ability of our platform to identify a customer remote desktop protocol instance live on the internet, and then automate all the way through within seconds the removal of that exposed RDP instance through cloud backplane integrations. So I'm going to switch over to the demo in just a moment and show you what that looks like, in addition to walking through what attack surface management in Expander can do for you and for your organization up to any size. So by any size, just for quick reference on where we are deployed and where the solution I just described is working, we are operating with the largest organizations in the world, including the US Department of Defense, where our attack surface management program covers systems that are used by literally millions of people and have literally hundreds of millions of IP addresses that are actively monitored in Expander, totaling about 10% of the entire IPv4 routable space. In addition, we have many of the world's largest and most recognizable brands doing trillions of transactions per day, and we're helping secure the public-facing components of those systems with Expander and Palo Alto Network's overall attack surface management solution. Last comment, our customers like our product, and if you'd like to talk more about it, we'd be happy to make some connections as well as, of course, answer questions. But first, let's show you what the product looks like. With that, over to Greg, and let's kick off a V2 demo.
Thanks, Tim. Onto the demo. So what you see here is Expander, Cortex Expanse's flagship product. And we start on our ASM dashboard, which provides an overview of everything that we do as part of Expander. Off the bat, you'll notice that our active discovery has already been running, right? So this is the sort of context we bring to a customer in the first meeting without them having to deploy any agents, install any appliances in their data center. This is from the outside in information, right? And what we can tell them is that over the last 30 days, there is a ton of insecure OpenSSH, a lot of telnet. Just in the last 24 hours, we have 11 new high priority incidents, and that there's quite a bit of dynamicism here with new alerts coming in and things getting resolved. You can see geographically that there's quite a bit of spread, not just a US-based company. We see things all over the world, and then many different types of assets as well. And then lastly, looking at the homepage here, we see externally detected provider. So what this is the cloud provider underlying the assets that we see on your attack surface. And what many of our customers find is that while they had thought of themselves as intentionally hybrid, where they have some of their assets on-prem, some of their assets in, say, AWS or Azure, that they're surprised at just how many clouds they have, that the long tail they have in the cloud sprawl is surprising. Most of our customers find that they are in at least 12 clouds. Looking on the left at the navigation panel, you can see we have a number of other pre-built dashboards we've built. One focused on incident management, which helps you manage down these incidents as much as possible, as well as the ability to create new dashboards easily. So if you come over here to Dashboard Manager, we've made it really easy for you to either take a copy of one of the existing dashboards or create a new one. And just from scratch, you can very quickly drop in new panels that we've already pre-created for you, or build your own customized panels and turn this into a dashboard that fits exactly the needs of either you, someone on your team, or a new user logging into Expander. I'd like to pivot next into asset inventory. Tim mentioned that Expanse does all of the discovery for you. And we think this is one of the most powerful things about attack surface management, that as a customer, you don't have to spend lots of time making sure that you've deployed the tool across everything you own. We handle that for you. And so here on this list, you can see a bunch of different types of assets, including domains, certificates, and as I scroll through, you'll likely see some IP addresses and cloud compute instances as well. All this discovery includes what is it, why do we think it's yours, and everything we can find about the asset, including linking it to specific business units, which helps you track down who owns it within your company. One of the newest additions from an asset inventory perspective is what we call websites. Websites are the way that a customer of yours might view your presence on the internet. Right? So rather than speaking at the port protocol level and looking for more machine readable, more of the layer 4 machine readable stack, we're operating in layer 7 and really bringing that to life from a customer perspective. What I have here in this tab is a details page for one such website, www.pharmadigit.dz. You can see here a recent screenshot of the website that we've been able to categorize the website, noticing that it has a bunch of web application frameworks that support e-commerce on it, as well as to run a bunch of security best practice checks across the website. Noticing, for instance, that it fails STS. We also bring a significant amount of data to bear here. So we're able to show not just technologies in use, but going all the way down to specific versions, which can help when you see new vulnerabilities announced and exploits start to be weaponized in the market. And then are able to show you geographic information as well. So really excited about websites. We think this is a attack surface that our customers had asked for visibility into for a long time, and we're proud to bring our comprehensive attack surface discovery to another part of our customers' attack surfaces. The next thing I'd like to show you is incidents. So far I've showed you mostly that we can discover, and then with web, a little bit of best practice checks from a security perspective. With incidents, this is where the vast majority of our risk comes into the product. So this is where we find all the things that have gone wrong on your attack surface. Here we have the incidents page in Expander. Incidents are where we take the assets that we've been able to discover for you. So all of the IP addresses, domains, cloud instances you have, and we scan them and we look for risks. So in this case, just looking at this top row, you can see that we've grouped 2 alerts together, the top of which, the big headline one, is an RDP server, but then there's also a self-signed certificate in there. We, by default, ship 600 policies for our customers and include default prioritization for each. So we think RDP is a big deal, is a high priority, and self-signed certificates are a medium priority. But we make it really easy for our customers to switch the prioritization or turn off or on alerts based on what their security policies are. To give you a sense of the breadth of our attack surface rules, I'm going to click up here into the search box, and you can see a whole list of different types of categories. And each of these have large numbers of policy types underneath them. We felt the categories were really important to help our customers not just make very tactical, I want to see this one specific thing, which they can certainly do, but to make it a little more intuitive to search through. So you can see remote access services includes insecure pulse secure connections, insecure OpenSSH, RDP, and much more. Now that the search has been applied, I'm going to click into a specific incident. In this case, insecure OpenSSH, which is one of the top 3 most searched and most attacked attack surface issues. In this case, we've grouped 2 distinct alerts together. The bottom one used to be online and is no longer observed. The top one is the one that we're going to be remediating automatically today. You can see that we've already started doing work on your behalf. So we've gone and we've detected an owner. The playbook has already started, but at this point it's paused and it's waiting for your input as a user because it's not sure how it should remediate this issue. At this point, I'm going to click into the specific alert and walk you through what you see. At the top, we have an alert policy description, and then just below that, you'll see remediation guidance. We find that this helps orient our customers, many of whom are new to managing their attack surface, and gives them valuable information on what the thing is we found and why it's bad, how to fix it. This information doesn't just help security teams, it also helps the service owners that they pass a lot of these fixes to, right? So when they open a ticket and that person says, why is this bad? All that information is here, easy to access in Expander. We as I said before, have already started running the playbook. And in this case, we've actually found a match for the asset in ServiceNow. So we're not just able to identify that this is your company's asset, we're able to identify that we believe that a single person, James Holden, owns this asset. Let me show you what the options are for remediating. They range from, as you can see, manual remediation, filing a ServiceNow ticket, sending a notification email, or this new, I think, most exciting option at the top is automated remediation by restricting open ports. Let's click it, click submit, and then I'll explain what's going on here. We have chosen to show automated remediation by restricting open ports because we think it's safe for you to take an automated action as the security team in this instance. Insecure Open SSH is one of the most attack vectors, one of the most attacked things that happen on customers' attack surfaces. And in this case, we're showing, we would only show that option if we believed that this was a non-production instance, so something that's not actively making the company money, and we're able to find an owner. When you click that option, we're going to go do a lot of work behind the scenes. So in this case, this is an AWS incident, and we're going to go look at the security group associated with the EC2 instance. We're going to modify it to take it off the internet. We're going to run a validation scan to confirm that it's no longer there. If I click over to overview, you'll see that the alert at this point has been resolved. All that automation happened less than a minute, right? And coming over here back to alerts, we can see the trail in our playbook events history. So clicking down into it and then scrolling down to the bottom of the page, you can see that I, Greg Heon, provided input that I want to automatically remediate, and the playbook runs and creates what we call an investigation summary. The investigation summary we think is very important to leave behind, especially as we do more and more on behalf of our customers and take work that had been done by humans, often doing very repetitive by rote work, managing their attack surface, and automate it for them. So we want to put as much information as possible into this report and make sure it has everything you need to understand what we did on your behalf. This includes alert details, remediation actions taken, more context from what we were able to find. So in this case, as I scroll down, you can see who James Holden is, his email address, whether we sent him a notification, how we chose to fix it, AWS private IPs, cloud asset information, including which region. You can see the dev environment, which is part of why we thought it was safe to automatically remediate by closing open ports, as well as a whole bunch of primary key identifiers in ServiceNow and AWS. We think these leave behind reports are really important as we help our customers automate more and more of attack surface management, because making sure that we are doing so safely in a trusted way is essential. And that is our active response capability and expander. Excited to get to show it to you guys in a demo. Thanks for listening.
Thanks everyone for joining us today to talk about active attack surface management. If you are not yet a Palo Alto Networks customer for Expander, please reach out. We'd be happy to take a look at your network, show up with data, and tell you what your attack surface looks like relative to others in your sector. Thank you also, Greg, for running an awesome demo. And for those of you who submitted questions, if there are any that we didn't have time to get to, we'll be following up. And thank you again for your attention.
Tim and Greg, thanks for that awesome presentation and demo. Very exciting stuff about protecting and managing your cloud assets and keeping them safe from attacks. Really good stuff. And so that brings us to our next poll question. Based on what you've seen just now, you may have a lot of questions for Palo Alto, want to see more, or you're ready to take the next step. Please vote in the poll and tell them what you want from them next. And that does wrap up today's sessions. It is now time to give away the final two $300 Amazon gift cards. A final reminder before we do that you do have to be present for the entire event to be eligible to win. And we do have our final two winners picked for today. They are Corey Doolittle from Minnesota and Jeffrey Drury from Kentucky. Congrats to both of our winners. Stay tuned for information on getting you your cards. So, you may have been, were you watching the event today and thinking that this type of thing would be the ideal way to tell folks about your platform or your solution? We'd love to hear from you if that's you, to help determine which of our events would be a good fit for you. We've got them just across the board in all different topic areas and everything. So if that's something you'd be interested in learning more about, we'd love to chat with you. Contact us at the email address you see up there right now, connect@actualtechmedia.com, and we'll get back to you ASAP on that. And finally, we have got a great event coming up next week that you might be really interested in. It's an EcoCast on API security, which is an incredibly hot topic right now, given the proliferation of APIs everywhere in the cloud. It's happening next Tuesday, June 27th, as you can see, at noon Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific time. I promise you that it'll be well worth your time to attend. Look it up and reserve your spot. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank our presenters today for putting together great presentations, demos, and their insights in the Q&A portions. I want to thank Rubrik and Palo Alto Networks also for making this event possible. Finally, last but never least, I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's EcoCast from Actual Tech Media and for all of your great questions. We love seeing you. We love chatting with you and interacting with you, and we hope you'll be back with us for future events. That concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.